And it's recording. Hi, my name is Tevin Stewart. I am a senior at Basic High School and it's currently a very rainy day in Henderson. So, to pass the time, I thought I would make a little video on my thoughts on the Divine Command Theory. Now, start with a little caveat. I don't have a degree in philosophy, nor do I pretend to be. I'm just an avid enthusiast. Again, just a high schooler, so I'm not going to pretend that I can add any substantial arguments one way or the other. Just kind of recap where I think the debate has gone so far and some of the implications of it. And just explore this interesting idea. So, with the caveats out the way, let's get into it. What exactly is divine command theory? Divine command theory is that for morality, which is how humans should govern themselves for the best outcome, would be a broad definition. Obviously, it can be critiqued into a more finite tune, but how humans should operate themselves for a good outcome to exist. So, that's how most people think morality. So they say divine command theory holds that morality, which we just defined, to be substantive and to be real in any real concrete, let me just close quick, to be real in any real concrete sense, needs to come from a divine source, whether deity, deities, or any amalgamation of something supernatural, something post-human, something beyond this mortal plane. Not merely human consensus, what we think right is, but it needs to become outside of it. And any interactions we have with morality would be adhering to the divine source, as in we agree with that divine source. That's the divine command theory, and for the majority of the human population in history, the human species, that has been the debate, that has been the agreement. Now, two of the most biggest proponents of the divine command theory are Islam and Christianity. Islam being represented by this, and then wow, I totally messed it up. Christianity being represented by this, and then Islam would be represented by this as well, and as well as Hadith and Sunni Shia. Obviously, there's more than just the Quran. I don't think there's that many Quran only Islamic believers, but yeah, I mean, I couldn't buy the entire Hadith, people. Come on, it's a lot of ball on a budget here. Okay, so again, Christianity, Islam, those are the big preponderance of divine command theory, and they go one step further, saying that this divine being has spoken in history and given us his exact will, which should be more than happy, told us in two installments, for Christians, Old Testament, New Testament, and for Muslims, in the divine revelation of the Prophet Muhammad. So that's the divine command theory. Now, there's a few problems with it, actually. Interesting, a guest speaker came to my local church, James McDonald, I believe, Walking the Way Ministries, him. I was talking about how God's morality never changes. But that's actually one of the dilemmas of the divine command theory that I think is really interested in most substantial argument against the divine command theory. It follows like this. Also, obviously, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. This is none of what I'm about to say is original to me. Again, just a high schooler. But Socrates in the Euthyphro dilemma. Socrates talks to one of his interlocutors, Euthyphro, and Euthyphro is about to bring his father up on charges, specifically, and to Socrates, that's very morally bad. Again, it's not good, but then the question does come up about morality and where do we anchor morality comes from, and one of them said that we anchor morality in what God does or what God likes, that's or part of his nature, that's where morality comes from. But then Socrates, obviously Plato speaking to Socrates, says, does God do good, or does the fact that God does it, is that good? Now, most philosophers would recognize that as a horn, which is, obviously I'm borrowing heavily from Crash Course and Hank Green and the videos in Sam Harris. Again, none of this is original to me, but you already have that caveat out the way, so I'll continue. Philosophers recognize that as a horn, or a dilemma, true sense of dilemma. As in, you embrace each and you let go of one, so it gets skewed by one, and vice versa. So let's embrace the first horn. God does good. Whatever God does is good. Okay. So God's nature is goodness, as in for him to do something, to say God did a good thing and say God did a thing would be the same thing. If the divine command theory holds that God does it, therefore it's good. So God shaves his face in the morning. God is doing a good thing. God doesn't shave his face in the morning. God is doing a good thing. Obviously, this is simplification, but saying because God does it, therefore it's good. Okay. But if that's true, that means morality would be arbitrary. It was specifically saying God's edict, as in if God could make an anti-10 commandments. He said, thou shalt kill, thou shalt commit adultery, and if we hold the first horn, that morality is anchored by his commands and by his own nature, then we'd see the moral unreasonability about that, saying God does something good, and if it's only solely what God does is good, then God can do anything to be good. And we say murder would be good if God deems it so. And we both know in a few of our holy books represented today, a few instances that does happen, Deuteronomy. But I got off the subject. We're not attacking a specific deity, we're attacking the overall concept of divine command theory. So we see that because we have the idea that God does something good, we're talking about the same, that we can't exactly say that, because then we could turn morality on its head and it'd be solely up to the edict of God. Therefore, it could have moral unreasonability. Anything could be good depending on how he's feeling that morning. But obviously, most believers say, well, he wouldn't do that. But again, you can't say, he wouldn't do it, saying just God prefers this type of morality, doesn't give any intrinsic value to the specific morality he chose. It's just the one he happened to choose and land upon. That's one of the horn. The second horn is, no, God does not pick the morality arbitrarily. He is following morality. Now, this is actually a key issue. If God is just following morality, as in God does good because there's something exists outside himself that is goodness, then you won't necessarily have to consult a divine being for goodness. We can go to where he gets his morality from. So the dilemma of this is both ways we can interject and kind of bypass God and say either it's arbitrary if he solely picks what's good, or if it's not arbitrary and he's actually getting from a source, then why don't we just go directly to the source, directly to the horse's mouth. So far, that is my understanding of the divine command theory and some of the outcomes from it. If you have any responses, you can point me to any locations you think can answer the dilemma or bring nuance to it, or just any things you think would be interesting for me to check out. Put them in the comments. Thank you. Have a good day.